80s echoed the roar of Hulkamania. But behind those iconic yellow trunks and bleach blonde hair lay a narrative lesser known. For every Hulkamaniac cheer, there was whispered tales of backdoor politicking and ego-driven feuds. So, let's dive into the paradox that is Hulk Hogan, a champion in the spotlight, but often a contender for controversy in the shadows. This is why Hulk Hogan was the most hated man in wrestling. When Hogan started making waves in the WWF in the early 80s, few could predict the seismic impact he would have. His bronzed physique, combined with an impeccable ability to hold an audience, fast-tracked him to stardom. The birth of Hulkamania wasn't just a catchy phrase, it was a cultural phenomenon. Children clamored for his action figures, while arenas worldwide echoed with his catchphrase, "What you gonna do, brother?"
And what you gonna do?
However, as his stock rose, so did murmurs of his growing backstage influence. Now, a hierarchy is typical in any profession, but in wrestling, where storylines and characters can make or break careers, Hogan's say became pivotal. Several wrestlers, including Bret the Hitman Hart, have alluded to Hogan's hesitance in sharing the limelight. I mean, who doesn't remember WrestleMania 9, when Hart lost his WWE Championship to Yokozuna? Seizing the moment, Hogan swooped in, claiming the championship for himself in a matter of seconds. For many fans, this overshadowed Hart's loss. Now, according to several accounts of the incident, Hogan had promised Hart a significant push, but later backtracked, saying that he didn't see Bret as a big enough deal. And such episodes were not isolated. Wrestlers like Roddy Piper and Bob Backlund had expressed their veiled concerns about Hogan's dominance in and out of the ring. You see, Piper and Hogan were two of the most charismatic stars of their time. Their feud in the 80s was electric, but off-screen, things were a tad frosty. Piper was one of the few who never allowed Hogan to pin him clean. According to several wrestling insiders and Piper himself, he was protective of his on-screen character and didn't want to be overshadowed by the Hulkamania machine. There were murmurs that Hogan wanted a clear win over Piper to further solidify his position as the top guy, but Piper resisted. Sure, they did work together multiple times, but their offering relationship was always seen as a delicate dance of egos. The Undertaker also had disagreements with Hogan, stemming from a 1991 incident where Hogan lied about getting a serious injury from Undertaker's tombstone piledriver. Then there's the Hogan-Randy Savage saga. Together, they formed the Mega Powers. And for a while, it was like watching a supernova explode in the wrestling world. The charisma, the storylines, it was wrestling gold. But here's the thing, every good tag team, especially in wrestling, comes with its share of drama. On screen, the WWE did a great job of sowing discord between the two, primarily centered around Miss Elizabeth, Savage's real-life wife and on-screen manager. Elizabeth was portrayed as being caught in the middle of these two titans, and things got dicey when Hogan started showing a bit too much concern for her. But word has it that Savage got pretty paranoid about Hogan's intentions with Elizabeth behind the scenes as well. There's this infamous incident where Savage apparently tore up the locker room searching for evidence of Elizabeth's infidelity. While this sounds like typical wrestling storyline drama, those in the know swear it was very, very real. Now, as we mentioned multiple times before, Hogan, being the megastar he was, had a ton of sway backstage, and there were rumblings that he was using this influence to, let's just say, ensure the spotlight stayed firmly on him. The consequence? Savage often felt like he was being sidelined or overshadowed by Hogan's machinations. Over time, the tension reached a boiling point. In various interviews, wrestlers from that era have recounted how Savage would often vent about Hogan, accusing him of trying to sabotage his career both in the ring and in his personal life. The situation was such a powder keg that when they eventually split up on screen, it felt like a mere reflection of their real-life animosity. Their resulting feud was intense and bitter, making it hard to distinguish the scripted drama from their genuine dislike for one another. The silver lining is that before Savage's untimely passing, it's believed they buried the hatchet. But man, for the longest time, their rivalry, real and scripted, was one of the hottest topics in wrestling gossip circles. Now, by the early 90s, a scandal struck at the heart of WWF's image. Steroids, the elect fuel behind many of the era's Herculean physiques, became a media focus. Hogan, the face of the Federation, couldn't escape the scrutiny. His admission to steroid use not only cast shadows on his feats, but created ripples throughout the industry. Wrestling legends like Jake the Snake Roberts bemoaned the scandal, suggesting it tainted the years of dedication many had put into the craft. Seeking fresh pastures, Hogan ventured into WCW. With familiar allies, Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, they crafted the New World Order. While fans donned black and white tees in support, the sentiment backstage differed. Hogan reportedly had an iron grip over WCW's creative direction. Eric Bischoff, who was then running WCW, had given certain wrestlers, especially those with big contracts like Hogan, the privilege of creative control over their storylines. This meant they could essentially veto story decisions they didn't like. Hogan was known to use this clause to his advantage, and more often than not, it was at the expense of younger talent. For example, Sting, WCW's homegrown talent, was set for a major push with a long-awaited match against Hogan at Starrcade 97, but the finish to their match was muddled, leading many to believe Hogan had pulled strings to not look weak. Similarly, while talents like Diamond Dallas Page and Goldberg got their spotlight moments, the NWO storyline often overshadowed them. When Goldberg's historic undefeated streak ended at the hands of Kevin Nash, thanks to interference, Hogan quickly swooped in and reclaimed the WCW title the following night. Such decisions reeked of backstage politics. Episodes like the notorious Finger Poke of Doom or the discord at Bash at the Beach 2000 were not mere blips. They were symptomatic of the control Hogan wielded. Booker T, a respected figure in the business, often recounted the tumultuous environment during these years, hinting at the disruptive nature of backstage politics. Hogan's last significant storyline in WCW revolved around a controversial incident at Bash at the Beach 2000. During this event, a scripted in-ring segment became a real-life fiasco. Jeff Jarrett was supposed to defend his WCW championship against Hogan. However, when the match began, Jarrett immediately laid down, allowing Hogan to pin him. A visibly irritated Hogan grabbed the mic, declaring that this is why this company is in the damn shape it's in. He then left, and that turned out to be his final appearance in WCW. Not long after this incident, in March 2001, the WWE bought WCW, marking the end of the company and effectively winning the Monday Night Wars. Post WCW, Hogan took some time off from the wrestling spotlight. He made occasional appearances in other wrestling promotions and worked on some personal business ventures. He also had a stint in XWF, a short-lived promotion, and tried his hand at some reality TV. Hulk Hogan made his highly anticipated return to WWE in February 2002 alongside his NWO comrades Kevin Nash and Scott Hall. The NWO's return storyline was meant to depict them as a cancer to the WWE, aiming to destroy it from within. However, this was not just a storyline. Behind the scenes, the scenario felt eerily familiar to those who'd worked with Hogan during his peak WWE and WCW days. His backstage influence, thanks to his star power, was significant. There were murmurs, then louder conversations about how the Hulkster was still playing his old tricks, manipulating storylines to his advantage. The most controversial chapter of Hogan's 2002 return revolves around him and Shawn Michaels. The two icons were set to face off at SummerSlam 2005 in what was billed as a legend versus icon match. The original plan, as various reports and Michaels' own admission, was a series of matches where both would get their wins and put each other over. However, Hogan allegedly used his creative control card once again, backing out of the subsequent matches. This meant that their face-off would be a one-and-done deal, with Hogan emerging as the victor. Michaels responded in a way only he could. During the match, he oversold Hogan's moves, making them appear comically devastating. It was his way of silently protesting Hogan's politics. The aftermath of the match saw Michaels openly discuss the backstage drama in interviews, hinting at Hogan's unwillingness to share the limelight. Hogan left the WWE in 2008 to join TNA, and well, let's just say this was all the bad stuff from his WCW run multiplied by 10 and none of the good stuff. Hogan returned to WWE in 2014, but he was out the door again in 2015 when a tape of him making some racially charged comments surfaced on the internet, leading to his WWE release and Hall of Fame removal. Although later reinstated, the damage lingered. especially with wrestlers like members of the New Day. All in all, Hulk Hogan's tale is Shakespearean in its scope, a meteoric rise, internal and external conflicts, followed by a quest for redemption. His indelible impact on wrestling is beyond debate, yet his legacy, marred by power plays and personal controversies, ensures that the world of wrestling will be dissecting the Hulkamania phenomenon for decades to come.